Hello, my name is Caliman, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video and to consider me for a coding instructor at Coding Mind Academy. The game project that I chose was for the Simon Says Pie game, and I will pull that up and share my screen for you to see it as well. Over here, I have my button class, which I filled in, and over here is my main.py. What I did a little differently was that I did dim the off colors a tad bit, just so that way they're a little bit easier for the eyes to see and detect the color shifts. I also added pink text and a muted green background. One thing I did do is I did include the stretch goals. For the second stretch goal, to add a reset option, I did a press R on the keyboard so that way you can automatically reset the game. To accomplish this, I did have to create game states, and to be able to properly acknowledge them in the game loop, I had to change the main game loop a little bit to be based off of these game states. However, I will not take up a lot of time on the code. I will, real quick, demonstrate for the code for you to showcase that the game does work. But this is all linked to my GitHub, which I have provided the link to that in the description of this video. So here I will show you the game, and it's set up here. You have the score and the title and all of the colors, the game over, and the press R to restart for the player to continue or to cease the game. What they can do is close out of the window. But I will quickly press this, and you can see that the score is accounted for every time that you continue on the game. But I will close out of this, and the way that I would teach this to a student is that I would start by explaining fundamental concepts of what we are doing, like, for example, in this, object-oriented programming. One thing that I would like to utilize is visual aids, as they personally help me. So here, I believe that this is a very fine visual aid for the student to be able to understand, and I would go on to explain that we need to create abstract classes, and then using those abstract classes, we would create specific objects, and then we would use attributes and make the attributes which explain what goes on in the classes, and then we would create methods which so that way we can be able to use the objects which uses the classes in our code. And once the student feels comfortable with what they're being taught, um, they would try out the code themselves rather than me giving the code, because I do feel like that is a little bit passive. One thing I would also explain to them is game logic, because it is important for them to understand. Like, for example, delays. In my code, I noticed that time wasn't aligning with everything uh, perfectly. Some things were going too rapidly in sequence. So what I did, like here, for example, was change this to 1,000 milliseconds, and then I would go on to explain to the student that once this is running, the CPU goes down, starts reading everything until it hits this call. It calls on drawboard, which goes all the way up to, um, where is it? Here it is. To the drawboard function, which then it starts from here. The program starts from here, and it starts reading down until it reads and sees draw over here again. And once it does, it goes to the button class, and it goes down and starts reading until it sees and detects the draw method. And once that's satisfied, it continues on forward, reading down, and so on and so forth. It continues until it sees another call. and which then sets it back into a little loop. And then I would make sure as the student is coding that they are explaining their thought process behind it so that way I can understand their level of understanding and their approach. And who knows, maybe I will learn something while they're learning how to do something as well. But yeah, this is how I would approach this. Thank you again for taking the time to watch this, and thank you for considering me again. Bye. Cheers.